All right.
It's your turn.
Is it my turn?
Definitely.
5,
right.
4, 3, 2. Hello, and welcome to the Overlap Rugby podcast. This is episode number 17. It is Thursday afternoon as we're shooting this. So, unlike the previous one, we have all the info needed to give pertinent comments. I think we have the teams announced and stuff. The last one, it was kind of an interesting one.
We spent about half the podcast giving out about Ben Teo. And our assumption that Gatland would pick Ben Teo.
Yes.
And we sort of got to hold our hands up.
Yeah.
I will give Gatland his plaudits. The evening after we shot it, when the teams were announced, I almost felt like we should add an addendum to the podcast, but I never got around to it because I was just like, holy shit, he picked Sexton and Farrell.
Yeah.
A lot of my assumptions about the built into the assumption that he wouldn't do that, but fair play to him.
It was based off the fact that like he's never done it before in terms of that way of playing. The two we've said it, obviously we covered it in great detail, but also the fact that Rob Howley's there and it's that setup.
Yeah, exactly.
They're so inexperienced. If it was anyone else from the Northern Hemisphere, you'd think if in there they'd be. Yeah, there don't seem to be
too many dissenting voices of reason in that coaching ticket, but they found a good selection. They saw the light. They heard the criticism. Yeah. And it worked. It was great. It was great rugby, and it got me excited. I mean, by the end of that game, even though, like we were saying, it was almost, the script was almost flipped because the All Blacks were attritional, were poor, were conservative, were just seen to grind the game out, and the Lions found the tries that broke the back of them, and it was like the opposite of what you would expect. And even though we were sort of very certain that the All Blacks would win, you got to say, like, we can definitely be wrong about personnel and about what's going on. I don't think we're wrong about the ideas, though. And I think, again, a lot of assumptions built in about the game them in the wet, and about the top test match rugbies were flipped on their head, and the Lions were the team that did that, which is the surprise for us. But it was wonderful and exciting to see a team find tries in that last 20 minutes when they needed to, and that to be really the deciding factor of the game.
That's it. We've often been proponents of this. Obviously, if you've been watching any of the other podcasts, we're big believers in the finding of the space and that kind of principle and that kind of way of playing rugby. But also just the philosophy involved in what a good game is. We've talked about that before, where it's like for a good game to really be a good game, it probably needs a winning try. Someone to go out there and win it. That was a really welcome change, because like all the criticism before, or not all, but a lot of the criticism on the Lions before was like squandering chances, which they've been doing throughout the tour, which you can cite some of just the lack of cohesion that's always going to come with a Lions outfit, especially in the early games. But they were really butchering opportunities, and we talked at length. I still maintain there's, with some of the stuff we said in the last podcast about just the lack of impetus to find the killer pass sometimes is possibly still lingering there. But with Sexton and Farrell on the pitch, this is it. With Sexton and Farrell on the pitch, those two are always going to do that anyway, regardless of what's coached or what they're heads up rugby players, and they're very similar personalities. And especially the Toby Faletau try, where it was actually it was 14 on 14 at that point. Mako was off the pitch, and that was just a wonderful sweeping play. Elliot Daly did really well in the initial break too, because Sexton probably gave the pass to him, and I thought it was a bit of a hospital ball, because he could have held it, delayed it, and given it around the back. It was good vision though, and it was given with the acknowledgement that there was a 2-on-3 out there. It was looking to find the space always, and even though the All Blacks nearly shut it down, it was great from Elliot Daly, as you say, because you have proper ball players, and that's the thing about the Lions tours. It's all elite players, so you absolutely can take those risks and back your outside men. And you also should. This is the thing. Like, you can, but we maintain you should, because this is like now more so than ever. It's become a festival of rugby, because now it's a Lions tour with a cup final, which hasn't happened in a long time. Well, probably like obviously the last one, the Australia one. No, but it was 1-all. In terms of that, like it one all, and the third test means something.
So 16 years ago.
No.
Oh, sorry.
4 years ago. No,
but that was not a festival of rugby.
No,
that was a festival of disgust.
I know. Well, it was about two sides were at it in that regard, because like the Aussies weren't anywhere near at the elite level of this. Like this, with New Zealand being the world champions and just cracking a can of Coke. With the All Blacks being as supreme as they are right now, and the Lions, the concept of the Lions being just some of the best players from the Northern Hemisphere going down to their patch to take them on. Now the fact that they've got a result, albeit a bit marred by, like, you can't downplay. Like I think it's been overplayed a bit in the media, but you can't downplay that, like, losing Sonny Bill Williams and being down to 14 men had an adverse effect, and clearly aided the Lions as well, which did happen. The All Blacks played keep ball from there. They made a lot of mistakes. We're going to get into it in more detail, but one of the things like Hansen, the initial decision to take Kino off, and
that was a massive mistake. We will get into all the mistakes that both teams made. And we're not going to pretend that it was like an elite level perfect test match.
No.
But what we like about it was how the Lions looked to attack and how they found the tries, and I love it. And I just want to talk before we get into all those mistakes about like the effect of that Sarri screen that I've been begging to see all tour. I've been begging to see it. It was such a weapon for Saracens all season, and it's wonderful because like it opens up the window of options for the decision makers.
It gives the defenses with different looks. It forces decision making on the part of the All Blacks in defense.
Yeah, but it also it allows the distributor to make calls and to see what's in front of them, and that's what the way they mixed it up was beautiful, because sometimes you'd have Sexton take it up and sometimes you'd have Farrell at first receiver, and they slotted it in really nicely. But that screenplay was always a huge part of everything that was going on, which is just very simply one man in behind and a ball carrier taking a short line up front. But there's always one or two or three runners off either side of the two distributors, and there's always that opportunity to spread it wide. It's just as a formula, it's really great for being able to get the ball wide quickly, and that's what you saw.
Especially, but it only works when you can only employ it when you have good passers in the midfield.
Two good distributors is what's needed, and those two guys. It was great. It was really great to see, and it was also interesting and enlightening from Sexton's perspective that I think he does work better with another
two distributors
on the pitch, and that's definitely a lesson for Ireland. You want to talk about lessons learned from this, is that Sexton probably needs another distributor going forward, because again, Ireland are very pattern. They have this idea now that going forward it's probably going to be, Henshaw and Ringrose in the centre and Jared Payne at fullback, and the chances are that's going to leave him very isolated in that decision maker role in the back line. So really, they do have to be looking at alternatives. They have to be looking at Scannell. They have to be looking at Carberry. They have to be looking at Olding and these guys, and seeing which, if any of them, can step up to that test level. Because Sexton could use the help. And certainly, it allows him to be free flowing. It allows him to do what we never see him do, which is just play what's in front of him. Which is just think about where the space is and think about who to give the pass to. And Farrell has no question helped him in that regard. And Farrell does all that stuff anyway.
And I thought a lot of what happened in the first test was very like watching Farrell. He got criticism for that performance, but it was similar to watching just Johnny Sexton get frozen out of a game as well in some regards like that. And they did. And they didn't find the tries. They didn't link up all that well. And at one point, his outside man couldn't throw a long pass. The Tio line of thinking is just, I think, wrong when you have such an elite back three, which is not in doubt, and like New Zealanders will agree with on this. The Lions back three is their weapon. It is their power. It's where any time those guys are getting their hands on their ball, they look dangerous.
Jay Davis as well has proved a really effective link man to that back 100%, three, because he's a threat.
Absolutely, his play with ball in hand has been pretty close to flawless, I think, this tour, and towards the tail end of the season as well. Once he gets his hands on the ball, he is very dangerous, and he's such a big unit as well.
Making the right calls too. Another smart guy making the right calls. So knowing when to give, when not to give, and being a really effective, like we talk about that really key position on the outside of the opponent's 13, which is your link to the tram lines from your distributors. And Jay Davis is threading that needle really nicely. He's attacking slow drifts with good carrying, and he's catching the whenever there's a blitz or a push or a shooter, he's catching them and getting the ball outside. And I've very rarely seen him be caught behind the gain line in possession, and that's a huge testament to him, because he is getting a lot of ball. So that's excellent stuff from Jay Davis.
And I think with him being able to double job and him being as physical as he is, it's still regretful that Gatland didn't push the Sexton Farrell arc like in the earlier games that access, because it could have, like we highlighted before, figured out a role for the 13 in defence a bit more with that system. You could have been figuring that out in the games prior to the test.
They still haven't been tested.
And that is one that is being, like, a lot of people are discussing that. It is true with Sonny Bill off. Lemape came on and did hit those short lines, and he did make some gains in terms of meters there. He also didn't find some passes that he needed to find, and he shot it. Like, Lemape didn't have a flawless performance, and he's in again. So like I don't agree with the premise, and it was something that Will Greenwood was saying in coverage actually on the second test as well. At one point before the second try came, he was talking about bringing Tio off the bench to shore up that midfield, but it's like
nonsense.
You would not have found that try because Lemape shot to hit Farrell, and that was when Jamie George's short ball was
you can't
effective.
be too reactive in your thinking.
Yeah.
It's always like, even though like we've been proven wrong sort of in that regard, because we were saying like you can't be looking to shut down the All Blacks because the All Blacks are going to find tries. As it happened, they didn't.
Which we were that was what I was my most surprising takeaway from that game, was just how the All Blacks
and we will dig into what the All Blacks did wrong and what and how, you know, poor it was. And like, again, the red card is not the narrative from this match. There are a lot of key elements to how teams went about the game that decided what happened,
including Barrett missing kicks. That was a factor too. Like,
again, like that's not a huge talking point for me.
He's never been a strong kicker, and the All Blacks have knowingly put him in there because of his playmaking.
Yeah, also it sort of removes context from the match to say, 9 points missed, and if they had 9 more points, they would have. Like, it totally removes context.
Like, it changes the game.
6 of those points were in the first half, you know.
Yeah.
So it like I always think that's a bit of a fallacy going down that road. But what was I saying?
I can't recall. I was trying to talk a bit about just the All Blacks, not like just the role reversal, and the fact that the Lions are looking to play now.
Yeah.
And you were talking about reactive thinking.
Yeah, reactive thinking is like picking Ben Teo to shut down Sonny Bill.
Yeah.
And I actually thought in advance of this week that the All Blacks were doing reactive thinking. Shane has informed me I'm incorrect by not picking Waisake Naholo.
No, I think
maybe taking
he got a hit in the head, and
as it happens, he's
Yeah.
injured. But that's the kind of thinking you would be very careful not to do, because as much of a weakness as maybe your 10 and 12 can be in defence, they're your key weapon.
Play. Yeah, that's how you play.
You can't take out your key weapon, because that's your path to victory. You know, that's how you're going to find tries.
Highlight before, the winning conditions for the Lions, it involves Sexton and Farrell getting their hands on the ball a lot and early, and bringing in varying passes early in the game.
Yeah, you've got to be thinking about how you're going to punish them, and that's Sexton Farrell axis is going to be crucial.
It's Sexton Farrell linking up with our super dangerous weapons out in the back three, and the All Blacks are like, they've gone for Geordie Barrett now. Their back three has been chopping and changing a bit, and like the Lions have found something that works. And the thing in the second test that impressed me more was in our multi-phase, rather than obviously they scored that great broken field try in the first test, which was just a little hint of what the damage that can be done by those players in the loose,
but very
which
much
we always
individual
knew.
Kind of brilliance score.
It's not systems based, but this last game, although the All Blacks did a very good job of holding the ball even without one of their back rows, they still bossed the possession for large periods of the second test. They won the war of attrition. It was branded a war of attrition before it was finished, and they did win that aspect of the game, but the Lions found the tries. And it was very All Blacks of the Lions to find those tries when they did, and just break the back of the New Zealand effort. But that's key. It's a key factor in it. And the All Blacks...
And that's the thing, is like at half time, Stuart Barnes talking 9-9 draw. It's like, this is a great war of attrition. Lions need to tighten up. They need to be better in the back. And I was like, this is not a day for tries. This is a day for... And like, that's just not true. And the Lions didn't respect that line of thinking, and did understand that they needed to find tries to win the game, and then found them really ballsy, really excellent.
They did.
And as you were saying, they didn't have much possession, but
and
every
a lot
time
of that
they
was
had
discipline based as well. They kept making silly mistakes, and the penalties have been a talking point. They will need to come down.
I definitely think the breakdown interpretation of Garces wasn't clear enough, and I think that affected it a lot.
That's one thing that hasn't been said off it. Yeah, we were thinking that watching it. It was the first 20 minutes when I noticed there were a few penalties. There was one for the Lions players being ahead of the kicker.
No, so that was against the All Blacks, that one.
Was that against the All Blacks?
Yeah, that was against the All Blacks. Aaron Smith box.
Oh, okay, I remember now. But we were just thinking like, maybe if you just said, no, you're offside, retreat.
There was none of that.
There was very little. It was very whistle prone at first, so that was a contributor. But then in the third quarter, though, there was a lot of headless Lions play at times, trying to... frustrated with not having the ball, because the All Blacks were holding it and working their way into territory and kicking three-pointers.
But every time the Lions had the ball, they looked dangerous. They did. And the variety of the play, they stuck to that system of having the screenplay in every move, whether it's out wide or in tight. They always had that screenplay in there somewhere to allow them to maybe go wider or do the inside. But they were varying it really nicely.
They were the ones playing wide. New Zealand were quite narrow. They were very impressive physically, but they played very narrow again. Really, 2 tests in a row.
But that, again, and then that lovely screenplay was constantly going, and I love the fact that it was the short ball that caught them out. That caught Laumape
out, was the shooter.
But it was a wonderful little variation and a wonderful example of one of those two distributors thinking, using their head and seeing where the space was and finding the man. And then Murray does what Murray does, which is score against the All Blacks.
We
warned them ahead of this tour that they really should be thinking about it, and to be fair to them, they had been.
Yeah, their club sides shut him down quite effectively.
Yeah,
the Super Rugby sides were watching him. Yeah, whenever he was there.
But that's the thing about Murray; like, he will do his job and do his job and do his job, and then he'll see a gap.
Yeah. rather than the thing you get with a Reece Webb. And I've heard some arguments about the Reece Webb thing, and you bring him on and he will shift, he will up the pace, but I find it's a more frenetic pace than even, it's like he's a comparable player in terms of style to a TJ or an Aaron Smith, but he's a little bit more just frenetic, I think, especially if he starts a game. Coming off the bench, he's very good impact, and I'm glad that he's there. But in terms of, like, Murray is a much more of an assured head, and he won't snipe unless it's thoroughly on, because that means the next play he's not at the base of the ruck, and it means we're automatically picking and jamming, and it means that the ball's slowing. So he won't do that. Whereas with Reece Webb, you kind of get the feeling once every few plays he'll try and have a go himself, and it's like, well, now the flankers have to dig you out, and we're 2 phases away from having a scrum half again.
But what Murray noticed was just a failure in the All Blacks on the whole approach that New Zealand have to rugby. One of very few. They just don't resource that area on scramble and ball.
Scramble.
So after the line break came from Jamie George, they saw there was a little bit of an overlap, and TJ went to shut it down. Yeah. And you could
argue holding by Owen Farrell. Hold on. No. But you couldn't. I'm going to build on that. Like, he did hold his ankle, but TJ with his wrong, like he kicked himself free, and he was looking out wide. He was not watching Murray. He was getting his leg free and covering the width, which is what they do.
That's what they do.
Which is why Murray's so effective against them.
Because scrum halves, New Zealand scrum halves, don't do that generally. They're always looking for that, where that space is, and that space at that time was outside. But when they went to fill that space, they left the gap through the middle, and Murray, really smart player, really great eyes for that, always finds a way through, and he's done it time and time again now for the All Blacks. Scored 4 tries against them, more than any Northern Hemisphere players scored against the All Blacks, and I remember them all great tries, all great snipes, and wonderful stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. We're very proud of Murray, and the Sexton Murray axis as well will like it's going to the next World Cup. I hope they learn
first
from
try
this
would have
too,
been 2012. I think it was that tight match that Carter won with the drop goal. What happened was very narrow. Sexton made a huge run to the blind side, very similar to this try, made a huge run to the blind side, giving them a 3-on-2. TJ went with Sexton, but dummied it to Sexton, popped it over the line. Second try was that one in Dublin where he crashed over from short range, again on the inside of a wilting pillar. Third try, again Aaron Smith this time, caught looking after a break, looking out wide, looking for where the space is, looking to fill and cover the space deep. Murray goes straight through, and the exact same again.
It's hard. It's a
failure. It's a genuine failure in New Zealand.
It is,
rugby.
but it's also, it contributes to what makes them so effective against other teams. Like, Murray is unlike, he's in that Mike Phillips mold, which is one of the pioneering aspects of Warren Gatland's play. Like, Mike Phillips burst on the scene, and it changed a lot about what a scrum half meant. And Murray is one in that mold as well, who's come up. He's done a lot more growth though in the more recent years than Phillips, I think, ever really did. He wasn't quite nurtured.
He's twice the player Phillips ever was. He's a thinker. Phillips was never a thinker.
Yeah, but Phillips could have been, I felt, and it was a bit of a shame because he was another unit. He was one who could have been that effective against the All Blacks, because if they're not resourced in that area, sure, they can scramble and maybe snag a smaller player in that position, but Murray's so physical himself that he will barge his way over if they're not quite filling that hole. But yeah, no, like that is definitely going to be a factor. One of the things though is the back row. There was a lot of the back row for the Lions. We've been calling for, like, Billy Vunipola has been lacking in it in terms of our go forward and in our defence. There was Warburton did play better than O'Mahony did in the previous test. O'Mahony made a few errors, I thought, especially that crucial one going the wrong way, not being caught with his visor down and not quite eyeing up where the space is a lot of the time. Warburton was trying to harry and harass in breakdown, but I felt just not that effectively. I was seeing he was given a lot of credit for slowing their ball up, which I'm just questioning whether he was or not. I think he was hitting a lot of dead rucks.
The All Blacks, yeah.
Like, and the All Blacks, we will get onto this now,
because I think maybe the Lions pack are getting credit for something that the All Blacks did themselves. The All Blacks played with no tempo. They played slow. They played deliberate. They played narrow. They played with a lot of kicking. And that was,
and they played without and they did that without a number 6 for the majority of the game.
That
which
was
is
crazy.
Bonkers.
And I mean, I think we can pivot into talking about the All Blacks now, because there was a lot wrong, and it goes so far beyond Sonny Bill. Again, Sonny Bill was maybe the original sin.
Well, he wasn't quite though, because we were watching. I remember when we were watching it live, the first 20 minutes, we were quite annoyed.
I was getting really frustrated
watching it,
kicking and Bowden Barrett kicking. And
there was a lot of chaos balls.
Here's what it was. They settled for the chaos ball. That was like their method of scoring tries. They wanted to just throw those high balls, and they were accurate kicks from Barrett and Smith. It wasn't errors on their part. It was an error in the approach to the game.
Yeah.
They were trying to just chaos ball. We'll get the breaking ball. We might score from there.
Yeah.
And that was sort of how they were approaching it. So a lot of kicking, a lot of narrow with ball in hand.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, not putting tempo on the ball, not playing with imagination, not really threatening the defense. Again, that defense that still concerns us: outside shoulder of Jonathan Davis, inside shoulder of Sexton and Farrell, all areas that could be attacked, and they never did it, and never with any pace, never with any cutting edge. And the reason they seemed to play the game as though it was unplayable conditions, and the Lions proved them wrong on that count. They showed that you can play in those conditions. You can move the ball, you can hold the ball, you can and
I think
again,
that was certainly what they maybe they were hoping to do a bit of that in the second half. Maybe they were waiting for the game to mature, and then when Sonny I mean in the first 20 in their approach to the initial part of the game, they were just trying to boss that pack early doors. But then as soon as Sonny Bill ended up going off very reckless, we have obviously a red card. Just going to confirm that. It's been said before, it was a very clear red card. Ridiculous. Old school rugby league hit. Wouldn't even be acceptable now.
Attack on
Barrett was closer to red. Yeah, like as well. Mako lost his head at some point in the second half, and he's one of those players. Like I rate him better. They've gone for him again in this week, and I think it's a mistake. I think he would have much better gains off the bench. I think it would be a good lesson for him to be left on the bench, because he needs to be self-analytical.
A break from Owen Franks as well.
A break from Owen Franks as well. He's been struggling. This is the other thing. Like that front row, Tyke Furlong's getting a lot of credit. From what I hear, people are saying he's the one holding it all together for the Lions, even though we're under pressure. Well, I'm not entirely sure on that.
Wright Crockett has had one crack at him in the scrum from the bench against the starting tight head so far, and he mauled him. Yeah, and that was the Rico Ioane try, the first Rico Ioane try that broke the back of the game in the first test. That was Wyatt Crockett destroying Tyke Furlong. I still don't rate Furlong's technique at scrum time. He's got strength but not technique, and I still think that the New Zealand scrummagers have been slightly ahead.
He just needs to finesse it.
You're given, and not you, but people in general are given like Tyke Furlong credit, Warburton credit, Wyn Jones credit for like a lot of that happened after the 25th minute. I think in the early 25 minutes, even though the Lions had a bit of ball and they were threatening the defence, like the breakdown battle, the scrum battle being won by
New Zealand.
The New Zealand, those crucial battles.
Yeah, I think we're lacking
the decision to take off Jerome Kaino to bring on Lamape. I thought they should have brought been Ioane. It should have been Rico Ioane.
Yeah, because he was anonymous. He was anonymous, and I don't know.
He was anonymous because of their approach to the game. So, in Steve Hansen's head, I don't know what is going on, because he has this team that's playing so conservatively that even at the start of the match, when they kicked long to the corner from penalty, not because they wanted to score tries, but because they couldn't kick the ball over, they went for a maul and got held up. They never moved the ball. They never looked to go wide. They never got their wingers into the game, with the exception of some speculative crossfield kicking.
Yeah, and a good grubber a good idea of a grubber that was poorly executed. And Reid was left sliding hopelessly towards a ball that was just out of reach twice in a few minutes.
Yeah.
Speculative kicks it behind, slightly
too much
poorly
of that,
executed.
too much impatience, and too much just like hoping for that killer play to be there instead of like making it with tempo and pace and threats.
And the
that
other
All
seminal
Blacks team, they never got Rico Ioane into the game. Sorry, I'll let you go in a second. But they never got Rico Ioane into the game, and then they kept him on the pitch, and that was, to me, was madness. To me, it was wrong to pick him in the first place. I know he scored 2 tries in the first test. Second one, he really showed his gas. First one, he dotted down. But I really did feel like Sevilla would have been more use for the game plan that they were going.
Yeah, indeed, especially when they started the way they approached initially. Like it was not a game, not a day for Rico Ioane. He's going to get slowed down in the mud. He's going to get caught if he gets his hands on the ball at all.
Yeah, and he didn't. And he, like, the one thing he had was knocking that ball on at the end. That was
which was unfortunate for him, but he was literally
but he was starved of possession. He
Yeah.
had to go, and the loss of Jerome Kaino was huge.
Yeah.
It stopped them at the scrum, having the advantage that they would have naturally had with that scrummaging advantage that the front row has. It stopped them at the breakdown, even though they were still achieved parity at the breakdown. They found it much more difficult to dominate. It definitely hurt them around the fringes.
Yeah, Sam Cane had to come off for Ardy. Yeah, had to come off.
They had to take Sam Cane off because they had no one else to take off, and Ardy is definitely a good impact player who made a good impact. But they lost Sam Cane, and that was huge, and that's a mistake, and it was a big mistake from Steve Hansen. He should have had 8 forwards on the pitch, especially when he wanted to play the game like he wanted to play it. It made no sense.
What was the unless my only mitigating thought is like maybe he figured the backfield would have been left dry, but I maintain he could have put Kieran Reid or Kaino back there as cover when you don't have possession. you can make do. Obviously, it's 14 minutes, not ideal, but
A lot of
but
Northern Hemisphere
a
teams
small,
put a back row
pacey
back
winger
there.
is not what you need in that kind of game. It really isn't. And kind of an attritional number 6. Like that was it. They played a very northern. We're very familiar with watching that kind of game in the rain. Very deliberate, bruising affair. For the vast majority of the game, we're soaked in that up here. And the notion of going that with 14 men without a number 6 is crazy to me. It's great. I don't know what his thought process was. And then another moment that I was hinting at later in the game, it wasn't Hansen's decision, it was the on-field decision, but I thought it was a crucial moment in the game, very telling. It ties back to what we're talking about with going for the try, going for the kill, but at 4 points up, as Mako Vunipola's sin bin clock ticked down to 0, so he was going to come back in the next play, the All Blacks had a penalty, a very kickable penalty, which they kicked for a 7-point advantage, and that was the last of their scoring. They should have been, I maintain, going to the corner then, because Mako's going to come back. You've worked very, very hard at that point to keep the ball in the rain, to keep putting pressure on, putting pressure. You need more of a cushion with 14 men, with the 15th man coming back on for the Lions now. You need to be going for that try. Go for a maul try and get it over.
Yeah, I don't even know about the maul. I think they shut that down, but yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
interestingly enough, that play came from a big Lemape break off the top of a line out. Lemape crashed into Farrell and Davis and just ran for about 15 metres.
Yeah.
And then the very next play, Aaron Smith went blind. It was fine. Cody Taylor made a good carry. And then Aaron Smith, there was a huge overlap on the left-hand side. And what killed the play was that Aaron Smith, very Northern Hemisphere, picked out like your CJ Standard equivalent. I actually don't know who it was. I think it might have been Kieran Reid. Was running like a line, like a screen line.
Was it Whitelock maybe? I don't know.
There was somebody running a line inside the 10, and a screen line. You pop it over his head into Cruden's hands, and it's try time, baby. And Aaron Smith hit the short runner.
Who then hastily tried to ship it on, but it was gone at that point.
And the try was gone. The scoring play was gone, and that was a huge moment of like Ben Teo last week. That was a huge moment in the game, both not executing that play, not finding the killer pass, which is what Aaron Smith is there to do, and not going for the try then when they had the penalty. And that would have been the moment that killed the game and the moment that won the game, and that would have been your winning
moment,
your winning try, which we always talk about. And the All Blacks didn't respect the Lions enough to try and find the winning try. They didn't back their skill sets enough to actually play the game the way they know how to play the game, and they were made to punish for it. And I'm delighted they were made to punish for it. I think it would have been injustice had they won the game, even with the 14 men, because the way they approached it was so wrong.
Indeed, yeah. And like we've been singing the All Blacks praises all tour long, and I'm wearing my Lions shirt. Go on, the Lions, obviously, but we've been singing their approach to plays and their philosophy is something that we really admire. And a part of that is what we've been establishing in the last few podcasts, is like you need to find the killer try. You need to be winning games by scoring tries, and something the Southern Hemisphere lads will always give cheek to the Northern Hemisphere lads for taking the threes. And like
that's the thing,
the notion that you can get we're coming back to full strength. They've been working very hard in the rain. They're only 4 points up, and yet they had a penalty advantage. They have another penalty coming. You need to be thinking, we have to score a try here. And that recognition on the field that this is the time, this is the opportunity. We can't kick 3 and retreat and try and defend because we're only 7 points up. We need to go for the try. And they didn't. They went for the 3, and it was very Northern Hemisphere of them, and the Lions' response was very Southern Hemisphere. It was an interesting game in that regard, and it was just a pleasure to watch. Like again, we're going to put our hands up and say credit where it's due. Gatland did find that, did go with
huge credit to Gatland for stepping outside of his comfort zone in a big game, and actually understanding that what he was doing, for the first time I've ever seen him understand that what he was doing wasn't working, that it wasn't some bullshit excuse like attrition, we haven't got the right players, no, he understood that his decisions were incorrect, rectified the situation, and put on 2 of the best ball playing distributors in the world together on the pitch, and they can wreak havoc, and they were wreaking havoc every time they had the ball. So again, a lot of this credit for the forwards, they actually didn't have that much ball, the Lions, but when the key place that they looked more elite was the distributing. The distributing the ball was much better from Sexton and Farrell than it was from Bowden and Cruden, and that's huge, and that's a big moment.
It's a big positive that they can take in, and they surely will, into this last test. And I just loved the way, like you said, we highlighted the fact that it was the short ball that came to finally break them, but it was something they'd working on throughout. They were going wide a lot early on with the screenplay, and it was natural that then it was finally the cutting play. It was well timed, and that was where the try was. And
beautiful.
It was lovely. Exactly.
Majestic thing to say.
But one thing I will criticise Gatland again though is his use of the bench. I don't know. Like he didn't back to bring on Stander at one point. Obviously didn't bring on Tio. There were calls for that. I think he was dead right not to. I think our strength is in those two. Again, like we were highlighting, reactive thinking is not good. But and this test will be some of the things we said in the previous podcast will be more relevant for this test, because that was an exception of a game. The All Blacks still will find tries. The notion of approaching a game by shutting them out and shutting them down and winning a narrow game, that is not the way to approach. You need to be almost giving the All Blacks saying right, we're going to defend with our lives, and the All Blacks will probably score 25 points. So we need to score 30 points. That's where we need to be approaching. We need to go out to try and score 30 points. And that means then in the first half, I firmly believe that if the Lions are to win this test, red cards aside, or any of that kind of random chaos that can happen in a final, obviously, but if the Lions are going to win this game, they need to be taking a lead early, like we've seen Ireland do to them, blitzkrieging them at the start and getting tries then, because I will not, if we get to half time and the Lions have been all over them and it's 12-3 because they've worked their way into the 22 and then blundered the opportunity in the 22 but had a penalty and kicked it, if we get to half time and it's 12-3 or something, that's not enough. It's not going to be enough. There'll be a try shortly after half time. We'll be back to level scores, and the doubt will come in. You need to be recognising that in the first half, when we have a gilt-edged opportunity, have to take it.
Yeah.
It has to be taken, because that's one of your few where they'll maybe get 4 or 5 clear-cut try-scoring chances. If all goes well,
but they definitely have a better chance with those guys on the pitch.
Yeah,
they definitely have a great chance of getting. And it's so many good ball players on the pitch, and I'm so relieved. I'm so relieved not to see Tio and North and Halfpenny on that pitch, because it really, you look at that backline and every one of them is smart and gets attacking rugby and knows how to work in the chaos and knows how to find the space. You look, the whole back three are really classy. Just huge credit. I really didn't see this test team coming, and we said from the start there's a great Lions team that can really put it up to New Zealand. And
we were wrong in saying he's not going to pick it.
And he seems to have found it, and that's a huge credit to him. After the first test with Tio coming in, even though I was impressed that he, first of all, picked Liam Williams over Halfpenny.
Yeah, that was the first surprise. And North we were assuming was going to be in there.
And I was thinking, thank God for that, but Tio's still here, and now Tio's gone. And again, Tio shouldn't be on the bench for me. It should be a more impact player. I don't think you should take Sexton or Farrell off. Yeah. So you got to be thinking maybe someone for Davis, or maybe some outside backs. You got Noel, who else to come in, but yeah, I don't really think Tio should be there. I don't know.
Well,
and if you do take one of them off, it should be for Dan Bigger.
If there's going to be a use for Tio, which I think it's Eddie Jones who's found it more than Warren. I don't like the idea of having him in there from the start, because it's the like we were discussing, the philosophy of your team. If you're going into a game with him at 12, you're not going there to link up with your dangerous outside men. You're gonna be going narrow. You're going to be trying to win on the gain line all day long. And it's too easy to defend. It's too predictable. I just think at this level with the Lions, you need to have someone who's a proper ball player in the midfield, helping out your 10, like we were discussing, just allowing their play to flow organically, whereas I think he's a stifling force. But off the bench, he's very physical. He's a big unit, and like England showed in the Six Nations, he can come off the bench and find a try, find a good line against a tired team.
Yeah, here's that works against Scotland. That works. The All Blacks have proven in the first 2 tests that bullshit hammer and sigil, smash way of trying to beat them won't work. They are up to that physical challenge. Believe it or not, they are.
They're ball players, but there's so much more. Pack, and
they all tour. They've not all tour. The Super Rugby teams were hurt, but all test series. They have absolutely been ruthless in that forward pack. They're only loving it. They love to see Ben Teo coming down their channel. They'll smash him to pieces. Like the Lions did to Kieran Reid towards the end of that match. Those short balls. The Lions only dying for those hits.
Yeah,
and all
it's not where Kieran Reid is at his strongest either. He's he
should be operating in the tram lines.
Exactly. He's not that kind of player, and what the Northern Hemisphere do have in abundance is those kinds of players and those kinds of games. So for them to play with that approach is just playing into the Lions' hands, and even with that,
the Lions playing Ben
struggle.
Teo will be playing into the All Blacks' hands. They bring him on with the mindset that they're going to smash through the centres towards the last few minutes. I don't think so, unless they take off someone for Fekitoa in the centre, which I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't like.
What do you make of that actually? Yeah, because
I think they'd be better off having a winger than Fekitoa. I don't think you should mess with that centre partnership.
Maybe Milner Scudder,
especially when you've Jordy Barrett on the team.
Yeah,
you can move into the
I
centre.
like that though, and that was one that like he's obviously inexperienced at this level,
but
so that you don't quite know.
If a centre gets injured, he can move in.
Yeah.
So you don't need Fekitoa on the bench. So I assume maybe Fekitoa for a winger.
Yeah.
I don't want him in the centre at all for the All Blacks. I think he's tunnel vision in attack, and I think he's weak in defence. I don't particularly rate him. He's gone to Toulon because he's not going to be good enough for the All Blacks. So again, I don't mind the centre partnership that they've picked. Although I will say that Lamape,
I don't know it though.
And neither do they. And I think it's going to be a huge responsibility.
It's more inexperienced. Like these are factors. Like the All Blacks obviously do find a way. They respond to pressure very, very well.
Yeah.
But the pressure is shifted onto them. That's been the net result of this test. Is now that the Lions are bolstered and they're going into this with confidence and a cocky kind of thing that we can play these boys. New Zealand are going in with the weight of their entire nation, which, like, as intimidating as it is for touring sides, now that they've got that win, it shifts back to New Zealand, and it's New Zealand without Ben Smith, who was obviously before the tour, he was one of their key men, and it's now like it's been a chop and change lineup in the back line. You've got two centres who don't play together. They're obviously two very, very fine players, and they're in very fine form, but will that gel entirely? Like, it's kind of strange that they seem to have as much time to gain cohesion, if not less, than a Lions side with two. Like, we've only seen Sexton and Farrell on the pitch together playing together like 3 different games, because it happened once in the early game, in one of the early games. Which one was it?
Crusaders game.
Yeah,
off the bench.
Yeah, they tried it then, and we've had a bit of it in the first test and 2 tests one now, so they're obviously a little bit more gelled than the All Blacks back line, which is kind of strange. You wouldn't have thought that before the tour, but it does heap a lot of pressure on the All Blacks now.
It's definitely true that Ben Smith lost his massive factor, and I think it even was last week.
Yeah.
But like again, like you're talking about the pressure. The last time they were under that kind of pressure was before their
that's what I mean.
Visit to Dublin.
Yeah,
you know,
they came and they conquered, and they did so in
a brilliant test
match, and they bullied us.
Found the tries as well. Yeah,
it was a bullyish performance, and Bowden was at top form, and
it's good.
We could easily see that.
Here's
now,
the thing.
I think it's going to rain on Saturday, or is it?
It looks like 20% chance of precipitation, so hopefully not. And that's
certainly
good.
not.
That's
probably not as bad
conditions.
as last week.
A bit of sun and 16 degrees according to the forecast. That's good. Really good conditions for a
rugby.
test match.
Yeah.
So I mean, look, it looks like there's ball play on the cards, whether it drizzles or not. You know.
Yeah.
It looks like it could be. Yeah, there's certainly chances. What's crucial for New Zealand now is how they get to those wide channels, because I'm not convinced by the Lions defending in the tram line. As much as I love Jonathan Davis this tour, and he's proven me wrong in a lot of ways, he hasn't been tested where I really do think he's weak, and where Brian O'Driscoll would have caught him out a few times in a Welsh jersey and a Scarlets jersey, is in those just on his outside shoulder. His decision making is incorrect. He shoots at the wrong times. He gets caught out. He misses tackles.
He missed one on Dag in the first test.
Yeah, he's quite sloppy under pressure in that, and people getting his outside. So who's going to be doing that? You've got Dag pushed to the wing.
Is it Geordie?
Well, Geordie's a distributor. Geordie, I assume, is going to work as the second distributor. You're going to have Cruden off the bench. Cruden's going to be a help off the bench. I think he's going to actually find himself in this game. He hasn't really been present the last 2 off the bench. I think he's going to be a help. But it's a lot of responsibility on Leonard Brown to do what we thought Ben Smith would do, and be that link man to the tram lines, to your Reeds and your people who are going to be operating those areas, Sevilla, and get those punishers into the game in space. It's really about fooling Jonathan Davis and getting on his outside or getting on his inside if he shoots, and getting the ball around him. And that's a huge key weight on the shoulders of probably Leonard Brown, because Lamape's very tunnel vision.
He is, yeah. He's a lot of the criticisms we've had towards Ben Teo. You can sort of level at
Lamape has been good, and he had a good impact off that bench, and he's been good all season. But it's what I've been saying like all year, watching the Canes, watching Asso and Lamape tear things. Like, they've really good eye for the try line, good eye for a break, good eye for a weak shoulder. Very good runners. very good at picking a good line, but
very physical as well. Good units.
Yeah, but that link-up vision and that like key decision-making in key moments at key times as to where the space is.
A little bit lacking.
Yeah, and they've gotten away with it. Like, they've been able to make mistakes and just not be punished.
Yeah.
It's like my same criticism of like the Lions in South Africa. Yeah. Everything is going well for them and they just look unstoppable. But like, they occasionally do make mistakes. Like, they'll throw a pass behind a player and he'll just pick it up and run through.
Yeah.
And it's like, but you won't get away with that when you play a proper team.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what happened to the Hurricanes. Every time they've played a proper team this year, like the Crusaders, Lamape and Asso have been shut down. And last week, Lamape, despite a good impact, was at fault for the try. He was at fault for the penalty because he gave away the knock-on that ended the All Blacks attack.
Yeah.
So in crucial times, I'm not sure if he'll have that experience, and he certainly won't be the man they rely on as the link man to the inside backs.
No, that has to be Leonard Brown.
That's going to be Leonard Brown. So huge responsibility on his shoulders.
Him and Jordy will need to get synced up right. Like, they're obviously working on it this week, but that's a new combo that's going to have to like work together. And because they've brought in Sevilla now as well, which is something you were calling for in the first test. Because especially now, the narrow way they've approached both games means that like a unit like Sevilla is more use in those games.
I think they'll be wider this game, but I still think Sevilla will be more use.
Yeah.
I also think he improves his game tenfold when he puts on a black jersey.
Truth. Yeah, that's very true. It's like he's not alone in that, but yeah, he's the All Blacks is the All Blacks. He wants to play for the All Blacks, and he's also probably bulling for it because like their two World Cup starters have not had a look in this test series, you know, and then they're
and Damien McKenzie, who got shafted by Mary.
Yeah, like I'm Damien McKenzie now. He's also inexperienced.
He didn't get a chance. He didn't get a chance to play himself into that team.
He didn't. But like
he's a better.
Just in terms of the amount of kicking that's gone on this tour at fullback now, with your fullback crisis, with your Ben Smith out, and who are you going to do? 6'5" Geordie Barrett, Boston the skyline, or Damien McKenzie in the broken field?
Personally,
you'd go for
against
Damien.
This game. Again, at this game, I would have picked McKenzie at 15. I also would have like let him have a go at 15 for the Marys, or screw the Maoris and play for the Chiefs. Have a chance with your team to play yourself into this team. I think he's a better fullback than Geordie. I think he's a more rounded player. I think he's less indecisive in crucial moments, and I think he would cause, like Naholo, instead of picking someone to be reactive to the high kicks, someone proactive. Who's your weapon? And that's what I'm looking at this team, and I'm talking about the weakness of Jonathan Davis. Who's your weapon to attack that? And you have this like Leonard Brown. It's not really his game, but he's going to have to take that job up. Bodie Barrett has been shut down quite effectively. They've done really well. They've had Sean O'Brien resourcing that area in his face. Not a lot of room for Barrett to break.
It's another one. It's like, so, who are the distributors among the All Blacks now?
Cruden off the bench is going to have a huge job. And that's what I'm talking about. Damien McKenzie, one of the best distributors in the world. Real threat. Lot of pace. Great player.
Not in the team.
And that's because he got shafted by the Mary by being put at 10 behind a reversing pack and didn't get another go at the Lions. Yeah. That's garbage. He should be in that team. He's good enough.
Yeah, well spoke. I've been watching them all season as well. I'm just purely playing devil's advocate. I'm very disappointed that we haven't seen Damien McKenzie on this tour. We have, because we haven't.
No,
and I like super
we
excited.
Out of position behind a pack that was in reverse,
and a team that was a hodgepodge.
Yeah,
and so like I don't know. Yeah, no, very true. But what we do have for this test is Geordie. Geordie's been playing very well as well. Geordie had a very good game for the Hurricanes as well.
He's going to have to operate under more pressure than he usually has to operate. That's all I'll say. You know.
Yeah. So we'll find out. Like, that's it. It's a litmus test for a lot of new All Blacks.
I would have liked to see Cruden at 10 this week, just to get Bowden in the wide channels, because I actually think Bowden is a weapon that they haven't been able to use because he's been at 10. Not that he's not a good 10. Like, he did his job last week. It wasn't his fault or Aaron Smith's fault that they kicked that much. That was a game plan, and they actually kicked quite well for that game plan. They did generate a lot of chaos ball. They did put Liam Williams under pressure.
They did.
They just couldn't exploit it. So that was fine. Barrett's kicking game was on point, and he made less errors than even Sexton off with the boot.
Yeah,
like
Sexton had one too long. Daly had one too long. I think that surface is remarkable because it was lashing rain.
Great surface,
and I think it was both times. Sexton's was a poor kick. Daly's was very unlucky, but both of them were caught out by just how much the ball bounced.
It's a great pitch for playing rugby. Yeah. It's like terrible stadium, but a great pitch.
The big old obnoxious bowl of a thing.
Yeah, it's awful.
But we're back in Eden Park, where
haven't lost since 94.
94. Well, haven't lost
against
since
La France.
Yes, yeah. Well, the French are always chaos to any New Zealand team. But no, I to be honest now, in terms of predictions, I can't really see. I'm a bit more optimistic than I was during this tour, and I know we've been one of the few. Like, obviously everyone's was on the Lions buzz from much earlier than us. We were very late to that game because just we were disappointed with the approach when we saw Tio there. We were disappointed with the like. This is it. We're very very passionate about the philosophy
tour, they
of a
didn't play
team.
any rugby.
Yeah, that's it. Like the philosophy of a team and how they want to play, and part of that is dictated by your personnel, and then to see the weapons that we did have out wide, and to see the weapons that we have in two world-class ball players in Johnny Sexton and Owen Farrell, to see that not being utilised, and the notion that it was going to be the All Blacks who were going to be bringing the rugby to this game, well, that was what was disappointing about it. But now we're going into a test where there are proper stakes. It's 1-1. And we have a proper team who are there to play, there to test the All Blacks, there to score tries against the All Blacks, and there to try and win. So they're going to go to Eden Park with confidence, and that's great, and it's great for rugby. And the fact that we now have this setup means that it's brilliant for just the global brand of rugby, because this is now something that neutrals can get on, or not even neutrals, but just not even rugby fans, sports fans who aren't that into rugby. This is a test that will attract those kinds of eyes, because it's the All Blacks, best in the world, global brand, like synonymous with rugby, and the Lions, another global brand synonymous with rugby, and two of them playing very, very good rugby and going into a test with a mind towards spreading the ball, scoring a load of tries.
My original issues, my original issues with the Lions still linger. Like, again, you're seeing, it's good to see Sexton and Farrell together, but like, I suppose you can use it as a teachable moment for these players and how they operate, but Ireland should want to do that. You know, Ireland should want Ireland All Blacks on that level. England should want Ireland All Blacks. England All Blacks.
England should not want Ireland All Blacks.
No,
England should want
England All Blacks on that level. They should be they should want to go and win a tour to themselves. And I definitely think that like it definitely contributes to that small mentality of a country. Like, you know, they go, all four of us will combine and compete with the great All Blacks. And you're like, no, we should be at that level. We should be trying to compete with them ourselves.
I think
you can use it as a teachable
closer
moment
to that level
than we were 12 years ago.
That's it. And that's the difference between 05 and this one. Obviously, 05 has all kinds of notoriety around it for a myriad of different reasons. But the main problem, when you're looking at it from a Northern Hemisphere point of view,
Charlie Hodgson, like, you know,
there was a gulf in class, very marked gulf in class that was exploited by some wonderful play from the All Blacks in their prime, with Dan Carter in their prime. Like, an amazing team. And this time around, the gap in terms of skill set is not as big as it was. Also, the like Northern Hemisphere, even though we're a bit slow to learn, the last World Cup has taught them, and we're into another World Cup cycle now. And the Northern Hemisphere are showing signs in each individual team, and the winners of each of the club, the domestic competitions, they're all playing wide rugby. They're trying to play more expansive.
On a personal note, Ireland, like, they have got to rise to that. Like, watching Murray and Sexton and Ty Furlong getting like away in the loose, and Sean O'Brien, watching these guys like really look toe to toe, if not better than their All Black counterparts. You know, Ireland should really be up at that next level.
Well, we're more guilty, or certainly more aware of that small island mentality, where it's good to give it a go, and we're happy to be thereabouts.
Those guys belong in that conversation,
but it's not going to happen. I mean, like, this is the thing, we've been bitching about that for so long. Like, why don't the All Blacks respect us? And it's like, well, because we never beat them.
But they're starting.
But now they've beaten them.
Murray and Sexton is probably the first 9 and 10 combination to get back to get 2 wins against the All Blacks from
the Northern Hemisphere.
From the Northern Hemisphere.
I'm thinking there's probably some South African combos that have done pretty well.
Yeah, probably maybe Forey Dupree and Mornay Stain or
something like that. But Sexton and Murray have been a thorn in their side, and Ireland have been growing and growing. This Japan tour was good to see a bit more expansive play, because we are still guilty of that pattern set one. You're right in saying we should get another playmaker in. There are all kinds of lessons to be learned.
Yeah,
but like in terms of the individual qualities of the individuals,
Ringrose and these boys, and Jared Payne, all of these guys can really be at that top level. Even Keith Earls at the moment. And then you got a great back row and the myriad of options. Like, that's a team, and England obviously have all that talent as well. Like, that really should be the conversation at the moment. Should be between like that elite four of maybe. The box might be trying to flirt with getting back in there, and then England, Ireland and New Zealand. Wales obviously are hopefully on that path back.
They still have that's another one. Like, Wales still have that. Their players are elite also.
Well,
a lot of their players are elite always. But like, it's just, and Scotland are coming as well. They are younger in terms of their development. It was a long time with Scotland.
Ireland should be going into that World Cup to win it, and if they blow it again, it's going to be just a huge.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It's like we can't demand this respect or this notion of being elite until we do well in the World Cup. We've consistently failed at that. And it's part of our problem. We've discussed it before. We can't do consistent performances. 1 in 5 is going to be a dud, and it's no fun, and it's no way to approach a World Cup. You just can't win it that way. But getting back to this now, the preview. We've one thing we didn't really touch on is the back row. We mentioned it briefly. I think like we're going to have to step up, and it's going to involve Warburton having a much more effective game, Sean O'Brien having a part. Like, he's been a very consistent performer, but he's going to have to be much more effective, because with Sam Cane has had a stellar tour. It was very disappointing to see him go off. We're like, the notion that you can fool yourself with this, the 14 men they played against, they took off in number 6 and still achieved parity and pretty close to dominance for most of the big periods of that game. And like, having Toby Faletau on the wings where he can grab a good try is good. He's making a lot of tackles, but we need a bit more doggedness in that breakdown. We need to slow them up.
We are giving out about the All Blacks a lot, and deservedly so. But most of that, like a lot of the person with the most egg on his face after this week, I think, is Steve Hansen, because the way he went about the game, that crucial decision to take off Jerome Kino. But in the pack, personnel wise, they're Retallick, Whitelock, Kane especially.
Scrum time all tour long has been the All Blacks.
Cody Taylor,
but getting the dominating the hit and getting close to dominance. They've been pretty dominant. The Lions are hanging on. They're hanging on in some instances. They're getting bullied in others.
They were dominant for that 25 minutes when they had 8 on 8. They were dominant. They won a couple of penalties. Then it flipped, obviously, again, another crucial aspect to that decision to take off Kino. But again, those players have been much better than their counterparts. So they're like Whitelock and Retallick. Like, we talk about, like, how if the Lions are doing so well and the All Blacks aren't, how are the All Blacks basically winning that game? It's because they're a huge pack. We're doing a great job of suffocating the Lions. And they still look to have a better pack in the second row.
Alan Wynne-Jones got a lot of credit for the second test, because just off the back of what was a very poor first test, he was decent in this one, but I still maintain he's not quite.
He's gonna miss tackles at big moments, because he hasn't got the fitness anymore.
He has got the fitness, but he doesn't quite have the physicality either. You're just looking like obviously we were criticizing reactive picking in terms of having like a similar build opposite Sonny Bill to try and negate his offense. You don't want that. But in the second row, you look at Brodie Retallick and the huge physical specimen that he is, and we have Mauro in there, who's a different kind of athlete, but also a power athlete, and he can cancel that out. And then you have Whitelock in there as well, who's another classy operator and a serious athlete too. I just don't think that, like, in terms of his attributes, Alan Wynne matches up very well with those guys, and he doesn't have a history of doing very well against the All Blacks either. With someone like Courtney Laws, I know, yeah, but with someone like Courtney Laws, who's a big frame guy, he's hugely powerful, he's hugely athletic, he's younger. I think he would just be much better placed to offset that, because like Retallick has had a marauding tour in the rain. He has been immense. He's absolutely a tour de force, and we need someone who can match him physically.
I don't know that it's about that. Like, my reasoning is different, but I would pick Laws. I would pick Laws because he's a better player. He's going to do more work. He's going to make more tackles. He's going to be more disruptive at the breakdown. He's going to be more effective at the line out. Yeah. He's just a better player at the moment.
The other thing I would do, and now I'm not, it's maybe an Irish lens, but I would have Best in there at least on the bench, but I would probably be closer to starting him just because of that breakdown.
Drop Jamie George right now.
Jamie George has been very, very
Best
good.
Of the breakdown, you mean?
Yeah, breakdown.
It's definitely an interesting
that's
goal.
That's my argument.
And George off the bench. Yeah. I get you. I get you.
Yeah. But it does, like, obviously he hasn't helped himself. Like, it's always comes up in Lions tours, like question marks over Best starts, which is really weird as an Irish fan, because he's normally so consistent in that area throughout a season, but he has struggled. You can't deny he overthrew a few balls in one of the earlier games, and he's cemented his role as midweek captain, it seems, which I'm disappointed with, because I think especially with gone blank on his name, Ken Owens. But with Ken Owens off the bench, he's a very similar player in terms of how he goes about things to what Jamie George is doing, and it just doesn't change things enough when he comes on. And I think with Best, he offers you something different. He's a good ball player. He's a good distributor in that pod system. He could be very effective in a Sarri screen because he can take the ball at first receiver. We've seen him do it against the All Blacks. He's done a lovely link play for putting Cian Healy through a hole. He's good. He's a thinker.
Stepping his way to that try.
Yeah, he's done great things. He's a very good player around the park.
Ken
and
Owens
he's
is a bit of a
also more
nothing
disruptive.
player off
Yeah,
the bench.
he's also much more disruptive. He's a jackal at the breakdown, and that's one area where we've been struggling. We've seen Sean O'Brien taking on the responsibility of hitting a lot of those rooks.
Yeah, and he's also
getting
getting a lot
cleaned
of
out
tackling. Sean
Yeah,
O'Brien.
he is,
He's been filling that Sexton Farrell hole. That's what he spent the second test doing, filling that hole and tackling.
Yeah, which is like, it's great, but it's a lot of responsibility for one guy, and you need some of your front rows to step up in that area. In this day and age, that's what it's becoming all about. We're getting more rounded players in every position, which is great. But the Lions do have options there, and I just don't think that Ken Owens off the bench is like, it's the same thing we were talking about. Like he got the starting team right in many ways in terms of that centre partnership especially, but still the use of the bench, I still question that. Having Halfpenny on the bench for the first test was a mistake. I think he came off
Teo on the bench this time. I know you like Teo. I think everything that you benefit from having Teo on the bench, you'll just get from CJ without the disruption in the centre.
Yeah.
So you bring CJ on for Faletau.
That's the other thing. I wouldn't have. I'd have Tipperick. But that's been a consistent criticism of mine. I think Tipperick's the best ball player of any Welsh back row at the moment.
Yeah, I would start Tipperick over Warburton and keep CJ on the bench. But there you go.
Yeah. But that's an argument too.
But like that's the thing is what you're talking about from Teo off the bench to smash your way to some tries and catch them off guard. You'll probably be just as likely to get that done with CJ, and it won't disrupt your backline, and it will be enough of a change because Faletau is much more wide.
Yeah.
So it might catch them, but it definitely doesn't take like this disruptive force of Teo from the team. There's a lot of impact on both benches. I'm looking at them now.
Well, you need to use it well.
Carl Sinclair has been great off the bench.
Yes, he has. He's had a great tour.
Courtney Laws obviously should be starting, but good to see
I think Jack McGrath should be starting too. We've made that point, but like Jack McGrath is one of those solid guys who's not going to concede that many penalties either. He's not going to be ahead of
something off the bench.
Mako is much more dynamic off the bench against tired bodies, I think, and he's a much better scrummager
a lot of
against tired
on that
bodies.
All Black bench as well. TJ and Ardy Sevilla, Scott Barrett.
Yeah.
Cruden as well, and Fekito. Cruden's going to have a lot of weight in his shoulders, I think, coming into that last 20 minutes, unless they've managed to click and it's all gone right for them.
Yeah, well, that could happen. I'm still looking at it thinking the All Blacks are going to score close to 30. Are the Lions? That's my main take off going in. They could. They definitely could. But will they? And that's been a problem. It's been in the Mall Tour. It's been called out a few times after certain performances more than others. But yeah, they're still butchering chances sometimes. And what was beautiful about that second test was the way they took those tries, but I don't know if that's problem solved. I don't know if that's problem solved. They still had
that disjointed centre partnership in that test, and there were still a couple of crucial chances for them to score tries that I think they will take this week. That Aaron Smith pass that went wrong. I think Aaron Smith, they'll call him out on that.
Yeah, it'll be in a review.
Look for that killer pass, Aaron. That's what you're there for. I think that Bowden Barrett grubber for Reed, a lot of those cross kicks that were just too quick. Yeah.
Well, I know.
So I think they're going to play with more tempo.
Yes,
for sure.
Well, they're certainly one of the takeoffs. Obviously, they lost at home, which is never fun for any New Zealander. But the fact that they didn't score a try,
that's nuts.
It's crazy, and they will not allow that to happen. All the All Black fans
complaining about like Sonny Bill and you're celebrating even though we had 14 men for the whole thing. It's like if the roles were reversed. Like all the Lions fans bitching about how unfair it is, the All Blacks fans will be like, "Hey, that's what happened when you scoring 3-pointers," you know.
Yeah.
And that's what happens when you scoring 3-pointers. So I think they will look for and find those tries. So I think they will probably score 2 tries at least, just from being in those moments, just from Lemape maybe making a break, and they will find the try from that. That's what they usually do. But I definitely think they're not going to be able to get Barrett in space because the Lions have done a good job of shutting him down, and those boys outside. A lot of responsibility on their shoulders. Sevilla's probably going to be on the wing for most of it, or if he's coming off, he's going to be a crash ball.
Yeah.
So are you going to get Sevilla in space? Are you going to get Daragh in off his wing as a distributor? Because Daragh is probably better at that than most of the players out there.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting one, but if they click, obviously it can happen because they're all great players despite my protestations. But I definitely think Steve Hansen has missed a trick or two this tour, and I wonder is he going to recognise what needs to be done to find the tries and to get back on the horse?
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting.
It will certainly be interesting, and it's very much like we've been branding it a cup final. It wasn't our title. It's something that Sky said immediately. But it is cup final mode for these guys, and it means that certain factors like fatigue, because that is one of the things. Like obviously the fact that we're at the tail end of a Northern Hemisphere season and getting into gear in the Southern Hemisphere season, that is often a factor in Lions tours, and that's maybe like sometimes you can make the argument that we need more changes than we end up doing. We've stuck with the same. I think it'll take a toll on certain players. Alan Wynne-Jones I'm looking at specifically. I think he's a mistake.
The last tour it was the Aussies who were tired.
They were, I know, but I know it's a bit of a thing. You can't really do in-depth analysis that way though. You can't really factor that in. Like certainly you can't make any calls based on it. But
I don't think fatigue will be a factor.
No, and that's part. Like I think the fact that it's 1-1 in tests means that you can suck it up
also,
for one more game.
People condition.
Leave it all.
They have professionals doing this, and on a Lions tour, they really do condition themselves around the tests.
Yeah.
And they do a good job of doing that. So I think they'll be physically fine. I just wonder whether they'll be mentally fine. They took a day off training this week.
Didn't they?
Yeah, which is an interesting one.
I think that was what was the discussion was going like. Well, just there's no sense in smashing ourselves up and being unable to play test week.
You can train without being overly physical.
I know,
but it was interesting. Like I wonder where their headspace is. Very difficult to beat the All Blacks 2 weeks in a row.
I certainly think if the All Blacks score early, it's going to be ugly.
Could be trouble because they still have a better pack. The All Blacks. I'm looking at that pack. It's still better.
Yeah.
All around the pitch, I think. Yeah, the better scrum.
You know what we're lacking in that back row? Scots
and Billy Vunipola.
Yeah. Could have had.
Sean O'Brien has been very good.
Yeah.
Like I think take the 2 Welsh out and put in maybe John Barkley or Josh Strauss and Billy Vunipola, an injured Billy Vunipola unfortunately, but then you have maybe
that would have
something
been
close to parity. But I don't think there's a single flanker. I mean, the Scots have been the closest that has come with John Barkley. Actually, James Davis of Wales for the Scarlets has been very good.
He's been very good.
But like just to that level that Sam Cane has brought to the breakdown game, I don't think anyone has been close.
No, not at all. Sam Cane has been. He's been kind of unsung
because people
are taking him for granted.
Warburton is a big problem because they have Faletau out wide doing a lot of carrying. They've Sean O'Brien doing the bulk of the defensive work and carrying around that tight area. So the job of the real out and out 7 job is being done by Sam Warburton, who is just nowhere near that level. He is 2 or 3 rungs below Sam Cane. So again, and I don't think he slowed up the All Blacks ball. I think the All Blacks played slowly. And that's the difference. I think they'll be quicker this week. Whether or not they're wider, they'll be quicker this week. So they'll look to get tempo into their game early, and that'll probably work for them. They'll probably bring Sevilla off his wing. They'll probably bring Daragh off his wing. I wonder if they'll stay narrow. I wonder, again.
Well, it's very unlike them. Three games in a row. It's not been what we've been. The previews have been the only thing is
it might free up space for Barrett. Like if you keep having inside runners, and keep having Barrett go inside and give balls inside. Like he might have someone fade off him and then get a chance to go.
Barrett to Geordie.
That's what that's what he's been doing to like for the Canes. Like he'd take that step inside and have a winger on his shoulder, and then he'd constantly give that ball, and then there'd be no one there one time because they'd be moving to the winger and Barrett would just go. Yeah. And that's the thing about Barrett is that deceptive acceleration that like if you just drift off him for a second, he's gone.
Yeah.
So maybe they'll look to find that, but really I do think they should be looking to exploit Jonathan Davis, and that's in the wide channels. So. We'll see. We'll see how that goes.
I think we're going to have to wrap up soon enough because we've been talking along. We've been going to make it a line special. We still, I'm looking at the notes. We've copied and pasted a load of notes for the last 2 weeks on a fair few of the other tests. We mentioned them last week as well. The South Africa France thing. We need to do our wrap up. We need to talk about the Ireland tour. We need to talk about Scotland. Fiji. Yeah, that was a crazy game. Yeah, go on Fiji.
Fiji were great.
And it was great that those games were going on as well. Obviously the summer tours are always going to be a bit disruptive.
There is actually a Pacific Nations Cup going on at the moment as well. I didn't realise. I thought there wasn't, but they're like the games are so disjointed. The table, it's like it makes absolutely no sense. But the games are happening anyway. There's another one this week.
Nice.
I'm just going to look up who's playing who and who won last week.
Yeah, but
Tonga and Fiji are playing this week.
Yeah, good game.
Yeah,
we have a haka off.
I think Fiji will win comfortably.
The haka?
Or the haka. I think Tonga will win the haka. Tonga have a better haka.
All right.
Fiji's like a little...
Yeah, I know.
It can't get you pumped with that.
Yeah, I know. I do agree.
What do you call it? It's not a haka.
No, I know. They have their own name. We're actually being... Actually, If someone knows, can they comment below?
I probably look it up. What is the Fijian one called? I used to know it. I used to know them all. Oh well.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's in Nuku'alofa, capital of Tonga.
It'd be a great game. Some basketball passes, some crazy hands.
Some errors. If Fiji can replicate that defence then against Scotland, they could put up a score.
Yeah. Scotland looked a little towards the tail end, looked a little tired. I also that's another one. Finn Russell is holding tackle bags for the Lions right now, and Scotland we're losing to.
This is what I warned when he left. Last week Tonga beat Samoa 30-26. Looks like a cracker. Also in Nuku'alofa. Yeah, no, I'll definitely be. I haven't been watching that. Didn't realize they're at like 4 a.m. here.
Well, that's why. Well, there's why. But yeah, no, I do love a bit of Pacific Nations Cup. When you find a little stream somewhere online and there's crazy rugby going on with it's a slightly different, cheaper looking camera often, and you're go on, crazy rugby.
Like Sky Sports New Zealand C commentator doing business.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, we will.
It's a cracking tournament, and they should invest in it. They should do it properly.
That's our main take.
Like they were doing it a few years ago with the triple headers in Sacramento.
Yeah. Brilliant idea, and just great rugby on show, and those kinds of tournaments are how we're going to narrow the standard. Obviously, more play for those teams.
6 teams playing in that tournament is a good thing. What needs to be done, this is definitely a tangent from the Lions, but what needs to be done going forward is have the winner of that cup play the loser of the rugby championship in a playoff, and have that cup be an every year thing, absolutely, like the Six Nations. And then have the winner of that cup go into a playoff with the loser of the
it's the same thing we've been calling for with Georgia.
That's what I was going to say, because Georgia, the other team, there's that 6 teams, and then there's Georgia. So the 6 teams are Japan, Fiji, Tonga, Samoa, USA, Canada, and then there's also Georgia. And Georgia should be playing in their. Actually, Romania are getting into that conversation as well.
Now.
So Georgia should be playing in that tournament with Romania, the Nations Cup, and the winner of that tournament should be in a playoff with the loser of the Six Nations, and the winner of
Italy.
Brackets Italy, and the winner of that game gets into the Six Nations next year, like the winner of the Pacific Nations Cup.
I don't mind if it's something like a playoff, but it has to be in Rome.
I get
they
that.
Have to go there and win it off them. Yeah. You know, I like that idea. Instead of doing a double header, I don't like. Because that's something they're doing in the championship.
For whatever reason, it just doesn't work for rugby. It just feels mad.
Yeah. It does. Anytime you watch a game where it's an aggregate thing, it's just like what's going on?
It just doesn't work for me. No, I definitely like the idea of going to the host nation. So and again, like the first few years of Fiji or Japan going to Argentina and Buenos Aires, it's going to be cricket scores.
But then slowly but surely, that'll narrow. And it's something like the other game that we do want to talk about, probably do it next week, even though it's long past, is Georgia or Argentina Georgia, which was a cracker and interesting. And Georgia did themselves great pride and great credit. We were right in saying they couldn't quite live with the pace that Argentina brought.
They got coaches in there though. Georgia, they got a couple of Kiwi coaches in Georgia now, and they're playing a bit more rugby. They're scoring a few more tries.
Their backs are
more interesting.
Because that was always their thing. Like especially at the World Cup, it was like their pack were world class, but their backs were a bit clueless when they got their hands on the ball.
They got a big Scott Spenning-sized motherfucker at fullback who's doing some real damage.
Nice.
I'm liking it.
Nice. Like Georgia are one that have been exciting us for a while, and it's great to see them get more game time against more elite opposition. And anything that World Rugby can do to try and make it an annual thing where they get good games.
I think they are doing that. Like that was the compromise, because people have been screaming what I'm screaming right now for ages. Get Georgia in the Six Nations, get Japan and these boys, give them a chance in the Rugby Championship. So they're not doing that, which I think is a shame. But money and such, and what they are doing as a compromise is guaranteeing more games. So I think the summer tours from now on will be likely to be two match tours with another game against a tier 2 nation. So that's the compromise they're doing.
Okay, I'm gonna miss those 3 test tours, but even still, So we're gonna wrap up. This was our last Lions exclusive before the last test. I guess I'm gonna have to retire this for another 4 years. I was tempted to wear some of this. I was like, I may as well wear this.
It's amazing how quick these things take over your worldview for a bit, but like this time next week we'll probably have forgotten all about it.
I don't know if we'll forget, but our main takeoff is come on, the Lions. It's a festival of rugby at the worst or at the best of times, at the worst of times it's just a festival of rugby. Ideally though, it'll be a great game. My fear coming from the Northern Hemisphere is that the All Blacks do get that bite back in them and score early, and then if they score early, they're going to score lots.
Prediction time, I would say the All Blacks have like an 80% chance of coming out on top, and like a 20% chance of doing it comfortably.
Right. That's probably about where I'd rate it too. I can see, unlike before where I was more doom and gloom, I can see more winning. There are more winning conditions for the Lions with the team that they've selected for this test rather than the first test. So the first test, I don't think it was ever going to go any other way than the way it went. But this time, there are a few more questions, a few more doubts in the All Blacks camp, but still would make them comfortable favourites in Eden Park as well.
For those that are interested, according to worldrugby.com, the Rugby Africa Silver Cup is going on, and I've just noticed a cracking game that I'm sorry I didn't see between Morocco and Madagascar that finished 57-33 to the Moroccans.
Getting the updates.
Yeah. I just think that's
Madagascar.
Cool.
I've never seen those two teams play rugby at all. So
that would have been a fun match to watch. 57-33. What was going on?
I don't know. Crazy
sprinters
chaos
all over the park.
Yeah, probably sprinters everywhere.
Yeah.
And falling off tackles, but running the length of the pitch all the same.
Yeah.
7 style 15s. But So we will be back next week with a review of the third test, however it went, and we'll try and
talking Super Rugby, and
we'll get up to date with the Super Rugby, which we've kind of missed out on talking about. It's obviously been taken over by the Lions tour, same as everything else.
The Sharks screwed up again this week, and the Sunwolves were demolished.
They were so how many points? 94. Yeah, we watched that. It was just scoring and Faf de Klerk at 10
was beautiful. It was a beautiful thing.
Yeah, we need to talk about that too. We don't have the time right now, but next podcast will be a good one. We'll try and squeeze in a lot that we've missed out, but in the meantime, it's all about the Lions this weekend. So here's hoping we can pull it off. All right.
Bye.
See you guys.
Where's the thing?
Oh, it fell.
Missed anyway.